Welcome back to the VHS Club. We are hanging out here tonight and we are talking all about Now and Then, which I forced Nat to bump into our summer blockbuster series. I don't think that Now and Then was probably considered a summer blockbuster, but you know what? We're gonna own it anyway.
It was fantastic though.
How's it going, Nat? How are things?
Good.
Yeah.
It's I mean, okay, so a little pop culture for the posterity of the podcast.
Sure.
The government declared that aliens are real this week.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody gives a shit because really they just wore us out like during COVID era. So I think it's kind of hilarious that the government is like, Area 51 was real this whole time. And everybody's like, and
if you need us, we'll be back in the blockbuster living our best lives in the 90s. We don't want any of that. And tonight we're going to be living our best lives back in the 70s because this movie takes place in the 70s. So it goes even farther back. And I don't know about you, but I the whole time watching this movie, I was just like, oh, we've ruined it. We've ruined life. I want my kids to be able to pick up bikes and easily ride for hours. And I mean, not that they can't. I can still let them do that, but it's not quite the same. It's not quite the same as it was back in the 70s.
Yeah, but they would need a cell phone and a tracking device and helmets and all sorts of protective gear and
true. Very, very true.
I have to say, I think we were the last generation where this, because we did that. We hopped on our bikes. We practically biked around the whole island of Montreal. Imagine doing that now. Our parents would murder us if they ever knew.
Yeah,
or we would be murdered.
I was in rewatching this. So for people that don't have the same level of feels about this movie that I do, for me, this was the quintessential childhood coming of age movie. Part of it is that I'm a woman, so Paul is here for moral support, as he says.
Thanks, Paul.
This is probably not Paul's coming of age story, but I really think that there's something about the notion of a really close friend group, the kind of freedom of summer. Maybe it's just because we're in the middle of summer right now, and at least my son is kind of entering this age group and has that core group of really close friends. But there was just I don't know, just something about all of this that every time I rewatch this, of which there have been many times, it gives me the feels. But it's just I don't know, it gives you a different feeling looking back at this as an adult. I don't think I had rewatched this since maybe teenager days, maybe late teenager days. It's been a while since I've rewatched it, so this was definitely
blockbuster for sure.
Yeah, it was definitely a different perspective coming at it as an adult and coming at it as a parent. Maybe it's just because it's also summer. I was just I want my kids to have a summer where they just have freedom and go and throw balloons filled with Jello at each other and do all these things. Yeah, there's a beauty in this movie, and it's part of it is that it doesn't not that it doesn't have a storyline to it. It has a story to it. It has a mystery that they're trying to solve or to figure out. But I challenge that it's actually not all that important. Like you were saying before we jumped on, Nat, that like I think the best, the best moment in this movie, you were arguing, and I agree with you, is
Yeah,
Brendan
the
Fraser's
pinnacle scene of
moment.
this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to recap the movie quickly for our audience, there's a group of friends, these 4 girls, Teeny,
These ones.
Chrissy, Roberta, and Samantha,
Yeah.
that have this sort of summer where it's all this very coming of age, where they're learning, realizing, experiencing all these new sort of things that happens when you're in your like early to mid teens.
Yeah.
And they kind of go on these little adventures, and their big goal for the summer is to do all sorts of odd jobs around town to save up money to buy a dream treehouse. Which, side note, I still really, really want that treehouse.
I know. I had a treehouse, and I still really want that treehouse. Oh my gosh, yeah. And maybe again, like that's part of it as well. Like for those of you who don't know Nat and I, like as well as close friends that are watching or listening to this podcast, we had this group of 4 close friends.
Yeah, did.
We had the treehouse, we had the bikes, we biked all over the place. We didn't have the murder mystery to solve, although I'm sure that we had moments of solving murder mysteries, but
we played murder mystery imagination.
Played murder mystery games. Yeah.
We were weird kids. That was like our favorite thing, was like to pretend we were in murder mystery. We're such weird kids.
And when we get around to reviewing Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead, I will go into more depth about this fun moment. But for those of you listening now, sneak peek into that. We watched that movie and a ton of times. That's another kind of like foundational childhood movie for me. I don't it's not even really like all that like important a movie, but it's like very close feels for it. And part of it is that when we watched that as kids, we like really latched on to, so the character in that movie, she pretends to be an adult and she gets a job at this company called General Apparel West, General Apparel West. And so we 100% pretended that we worked at General Apparel West, although even though it's called General Apparel West, our General Apparel West, our we were real estate agents, because that's one of our friends had a parent who was a real estate agent. So we had like materials for like play. We did. We had like pretend phone calls. We dressed up. We like were very fancy in our real jobs as real estate agents working for General Apparel West. Yeah. So,
I think we were like maybe 7 or 8 when we came up with this game.
Oh gosh, we were older, I think, than that. I think it was like a level of embarrassment.
We played it forever.
Yeah.
We played it until we were like 17.
Yeah, true.
But
we stayed in this world for a long time, but yeah.
A long time. We didn't know what apparel meant when we came up with it either.
True. Very, very true.
I remember not knowing what the word was, and my dad was like, you kids are dumb. It means clothes.
Sure. Our parents were like, oh. Okay. Yeah, we played GA for a very, very long time. But those 2 movies kind of overlap in my mind as I was rewatching this one, because that kind of like summer freedom where you were old enough to have a level of independence where you weren't like at summer camp. You were just gone for like the summer, being outside with your friend group and going like all over the place.
That joy of like kind of almost the latchkey kids and all of that, those generations where it's like, go outside and don't come home until you need to be fed. And even at that lunch, you're in the neighborhood, you'll find it somewhere. Like, doesn't have to be our home, just go outside.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And we didn't have like stay-at-home parents necessarily, even at the time. Like, we had parents that were home sometimes during the day, but it was like, here's the key, don't get dead, come home for dinner. Like, it was wild.
Yep.
So in this movie, the girls are trying to raise money to get their dream treehouse, and all sorts of different things happen. They get in fights with boys. They go on an adventure to figure out this mystery. They think they've had a seance in this cemetery, and they think they have resurrected the spirit of dear Johnny. And they can't find any information about him, so they have to bike to the next town over to look at the library archives.
Mhm.
So they go on this huge adventure, and really the movie is mostly actually just about each girl having like a sort of a personal drama in their like at home lives or their personal lives where they don't know how to talk about it with their friends because they're starting to lose that childhood. They're
Mhm.
starting to become teenagers, they're in adolescence or actually beginning.
Mhm.
I almost fell out of my chair when I was rewatching this and the narrator was like, "The summer when we were 12." I'm like, "12? These
I
kids in
know.
this movie were supposed to be 12?"
I also had that feeling. I was like,
I'm like, "No, they were 15 or 16."
well,
Like,
and in
not
the
12?
actual actors were like 13, 14,
15.
15. Like, so
Yeah.
they're, yeah, but, and I know, yeah, I disagree with,
They
the
didn't
fact that they
seem
were supposed,
12 years
they
old,
didn't seem
but
12 years old to me. Although the other fact that I thought was like also crazy to me was that the screenwriter for this apparently wrote this when she was 10. And I was like,
yeah.
yeah. Like, as someone that did, as us who have done a ton of writing when we were younger, I'm like, I
Oh my
believe that
god.
she had the idea when she was 10. I believe she maybe even wrote some of
She
the
just
idea down when
reworked it
she was
a lot
10.
over
But
the
I believe
years.
that she probably did a little bit of reworking on it because, yeah, it feels a little unlikely that she wrote this when she was 10. But fun fact
Mind
for all of you,
you,
she wrote this when she was 10 about her own friend group.
one of my favorite books, one of the first novels I read was S.E. Hinton's The
The
Outsiders, and she
Outsiders.
wrote
Yeah.
that when she was a teenager.
Yeah,
She
teenager,
was
I
maybe
believe. I would
yeah,
believe that she wrote this at
10
like,
is a bit juvenile, but yeah,
yeah.
no, yeah.
Like,
But still. Anyways, brilliant idea. She
mhm.
did say it was based on her friends
Yep.
and her friend group and how Samantha was based on her older sister, and
Yep.
it was really cute. Anyways, yeah, so that's basically the movie is just them and they come back together. So there's the younger cast and the older cast, the older
Mhm.
versions of them. And it kind of shows in parts where they've come back together because one of them is pregnant and having a baby. So they kind of all sort of reunite because they have a pact to always be there for each other.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a wonderful movie. Amazing cast, amazing acting. Christina Ricci is still like, she's definitely one of the most formidable child actors. I mean, she's still a phenomenal actor, obviously, but like she's just exceptional,
Yeah.
especially in this movie. So
I mean, honestly, like, there's not really a bad actor in this movie. And like,
no, not at all.
it's so funny. There's so many like famous actors in this movie that I almost forgot about like the other famous actors in this movie. Like, as it started and the credits were rolling, I was like, Brendan Fraser's in this? And I was like, Janine Garofalo is in this?
Yeah,
Wait,
yeah.
and there were three. I forgot that Rita Wilson was in it because
Hank Azaria's in
Hank
it.
Azaria's in it. Yeah. It's just, yeah, it's got like a fairly all-star cast all the way through. Like, it was
Yeah.
just kind of
Well, even
amazing.
all of the child actors in this were
Mhm.
already famous, at least to kids. Though Ashleigh Aston Moore was probably more Canadian famous because she was on one of the most popular kids TV shows in Canada at the time
Yeah,
called The Odyssey. If anybody wants a wild trip, it's kind of like
it was a wild
a
trip.
Canadian Lord of the Flies story. Like it was wild show. It was so good, and she starred in that. So she was already super famous at the time as well. And Christina
Yeah,
Ricci had already done Casper, and Jenna Hoffman was in was The Man Without a Face. She's in
yep.
a lot. She was
She's in a
also
lot. Yeah,
yeah, and uh, Thora Birch was in Hocus Pocus.
she's in Hocus Pocus. Yeah,
Yeah,
she's in a bunch of
yeah.
stuff as well. Yeah, I mean, it. Yeah, I don't know. It was.
And
It's
Devon
fun.
Sawa was in
And
it,
Devon
which
Sawa is in it.
speaking of Canadian famous, but he
Oh,
was the like the dreamboat of the 90s heartthrobs for teen girls.
so much so that all four of those actresses were like in a pact with each other, trying to like win over which one of them would date him throughout the whole filming of this movie. I'm like, I hope that he is like aware of that and enjoyed that as a moment. Like, it's just kind
Well,
of amazing.
he was always such a gentleman. He's never commented on it, but
Yeah.
Thora Birch was like during a recent anniversary of the movie was like, Oh no, Christina Ricci won. And I'm like, yes.
I mean, she should. She's the reason why he was in this movie anyway, because she had just done Casper, and he has like a very brief yet incredibly memorable moment as Casper, as real life Casper in that movie. And so I guess she was the one that talked him into being in this movie. But I love that about Now and Then, where I love that there is like the girl group, which obviously this entire movie centers around, right? This group of 4 best friends, women friends. But there's also a boy group. Like there could, like, I'm glad there's no sequel, but there could just as easily have been a sequel about these, like also a group of 4 boys who like were certainly completely equal counterparts to these girls, and were like also, you know, living their best life that summer and doing all who knows what kind of shenanigans, you know, they were.
I think when I was a kid, what I loved about this movie is that it was about the girl group and not the boy group, because we have that movie so many times over, like Stand By Me, you know, like,
Sandlot. Yeah,
Sandlot. It's always about the boy group. This one was really, I'm like, this is about a girl group, and it was such a big movie.
that is true. Actually, it's funny. Like looking back now, I was just like, oh, it's awesome that they have the boys. But you're right, there are a ton of movies about the boys. I guess I've been on like a girl kick lately. I've been watching like Anne of Green Gables with my daughter, and like watching a whole bunch of like girl-centric, girl-powered movies and shows. So, yeah. Oh gosh.
So the mystery they're trying to solve is they're trying to figure out, like, they think they brought this ghost back to life, and it gives them this opportunity to bond and to sort of figure out, like, when they're seeing that this tragedy of how it was a young boy and mother who had passed away, and it helps them also work through their troubles. Like, we have Samantha, whose parents are getting divorced, which was extremely taboo. Well, I mean, up until recently, to be fair. Like, I remember when I was a kid, there was one kid in elementary school that was divorced, and we were kind of all told, like, treat them especially kindly because, you know, they're from a divorced family, which is crazy.
Yeah, it was starting to become more of a common thing as we were, movies and television were trying to normalize it or show more diverse families as a result of it. But definitely a different vibe than today, for sure.
Yeah, so in the movie, like, it's really like a very like shocking and
she doesn't even tell any of her friends until like you know, more than halfway through the movie, and even then,
And then we have Thora Birch's character Teeny, whose parents are socialites and usually at the country club. And there's one scene where they're having a party, and she's sitting on the roof because she could see the drive-in theater screen from her roof, and she's watching the movie because she dreams of being an actress when she grows up. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure her parents were swingers from the look of the party. I'm like, was that a bullet?
It's like
in the background?
it's the middle of the night as well. And she's just like sitting on the roof, and you're like, yeah, that's normal. That's totally fine. Nothing to see here. Yeah.
And then we have Chrissy, who's, I guess nowadays they would call her an almond mom, you know, like keeps criticizing her daughter for not being the right weight for.
Oh yeah, Bonnie Hunt is in this. Yeah, as her
Bonnie Hunt is the almond mom.
Yeah.
You know, criticizing her daughter's weight and making that like a focus, and how she has to be perfect. So she's actually quite a cute character because she's always like, oh, you can't say bad words, don't cuss, girls, and
she's like wonderfully naive, but yet included in the group, which is really nice. Props, I guess, to the 80s and 90s for like, I know now they get a bad rap because it's like they always have like the quote unquote fat kid in all these movies. But I will say that like the fat kid is always like beloved in these movies as well, though. Like these characters are not like ostracized. They're not like, I don't like, and this was the one where
treated as a fat kid in this movie, except
she's also not a fat kid in this, but like she's like
not fat.
She's not fat at all. So there's that. But yeah, she's
and then we have Roberta, whose mom had passed away, so she has a single father, and she has she's a tomboy, and she has a brother. Like she's also, you know, tough, and her thing, besides not having really dealt with her mother's death, is she hates that she's starting to get boobs. So she keeps like taping them down.
She tapes them down, and then Thora Birch's character puts pudding in balloons and puts it into her bra to be realistic. And I was like, interesting. It's like feels like that would be a really good way to go about that. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's
So one scene that I love, that really shows that the girls are really good friends. So they're off on their bike trek to go to the next town to look at the town records to find old newspapers about Dear Johnny, and they stop at like sort of I guess the local like swimming hole, you know, like the a little lake or something,
yeah,
and they go swimming and they have their little hijinks. But then they notice as they're getting ready to leave, the boys, the little boy gang, the worms as they call them, are skinny dipping.
yeah,
But before that, it's this sort of like that sort of moment, the sort of sexual awakening that
yeah,
kids have where they're
yeah.
just like, oh, we just saw Scott's penis. And Chrissy's like, I'm going to be the only one who hasn't seen his penis. And that's the only thing you guys are going to talk about all summer. So now I feel pressured to look. And they're like, no, 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 you don't have to. Like, it's fine. We won't talk about it all summer. And she's like, but I have to. Anyway, so she has her little brave moments where she like breaks that mold that her mother's trying to force her in. And I thought that made her so endearing.
Yeah, she's even endearing I mean, Rita Wilson just plays her so well as an adult, but she's endearing as an adult. I love the moments as adults, they're all coming back together again because that character, who is played by Rita Wilson as an adult, is pregnant and like about to have a baby. And I love that like they're all together there to like help her deliver the baby, and her like husband, partner, what have you, is like at work and they're like, oh, did you call him? It's like they don't need him at all. They're like, no, we got this. We're gonna deliver the baby, and like we'll call you later. And he's so like, he seems like such a nice guy, and is like totally just hilariously in the background. And like, I don't know. I kind of found it endearing that he's like there, but not in the like I don't know. I feel like in other like 70s movies and TV shows, like the dad is like in the waiting room, like with a cigar kind of, you know, setup. Whereas this dad, like, it seems like, I don't know, he seems like a really like, yeah.
He burst and he's like, did I miss it? And they're like, it's fine.
Yeah.
Here's your beautiful baby.
Here's your baby. Yeah, exactly. He just seems, I don't know, likable. And I love that it's like, he lets that happen.
I love when you see their adult selves because Chrissy always wanted to marry a rich doctor, which she did. He was a dentist. And it was actually the nerdy boy that kind of hits on her at the baseball game that turned into an all-out brawl when they insulted Roberta for being a girl and girls can't play sports. Which I love that scene because then, you know, they're like, Roberta, you can't fight. And they like break up the fight because she's like, girls can play baseball, and she decks the kid. And then the kid insults her by saying something like awful about, well, her mother died and like you don't know how to be a girl. And Samantha just goes ape shit on him. Like it's this huge, I'm like, my dad legit would have been like, good job, kid.
Well done. Exactly.
I'm like, I think our parents in general would have freaked out if we were in like an all-out fist fight, but my dad would have been like, you girls did me proud.
Yeah, exactly.
He did teach us how to do like some, you know, a little bit of street fighting, you know, self-defense, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. These comments from our live studio audience are completely making me laugh, so I feel the need to share some of them with all of you listening at home. And so Hank says, I had the biggest crush on Christina Ricci when I was a kid. So did I. Like wanted to be her. I love her. Yeah, total girl crush. You were absolutely right. Brendan Fraser was in this. He's fantastic, and we should definitely talk in a minute about like the importance of that role. I love Paul says, how big are they gonna get? Made me laugh. Yeah, right. I felt that deeply. How big are they going to get? What the hell?
So that's from the skinny dipping scene where they see the boys and they're talking about the penises, and Chrissy's like, oh, it's so small, and then Teeny's like, oh, well, they get bigger. And she's like, what does that mean? And they're like, well, when they get a hard on, they get much bigger. And she's like, oh, okay. What's a hard on? That scene killed me because I was like, it's so real because like kids are kind of left in the wind to figure this stuff out themselves.
Oh, funny. Oh, I totally thought that was in reference to the her wrapping her chest and saying how big are they going to get for
that's
her boobs,
true.
Which might have been. But either, which is why I was relating to it deeply. But I do also love Hank's comment that every girl was curious about Devon Sawa's penis back then and now. I mean, all the time. Like what has not changed? Hot. Yeah, still super hot.
Then he was super cute and dreamy and such a heartthrob. Now he's just really hot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Apparently, so there was an urban legend going
It's the
around.
boobs.
Yes, Paul, we realize it was boobs. Obviously, I'm straight. Obviously, immediately thought about Devon Sawa's.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Yeah.
my bad. But yeah, so there was this sort of urban legend at the time, and since we didn't have like digital anything back then, people would try and pause the VHS tape to see
Yeah.
if they could see Devon Sawa's penis. He's like, no, was not actually naked. Like something was covering it. I was a kid. I was 15. Like,
I always kind
so
of wondered how they pulled some of those scenes off because they definitely were. They were young kids. So I'm, but they had like bare
oh, I'm
asses
sure it
in the
was
scene.
probably mm,
It said sorry, I'm still laughing at Paul's comments. They said that they put like some kind of covering over it. Was like, which would have been super awkward to act. It's like you're outside in nature in like a pond swimming, but you have we were like filming you from behind to show your bare ass and you have to wear something to cover your penis. Like it just the whole thing feels horribly awkward. So props to all of those boys for doing.
actors.
Yeah.
Props to actors for doing nude scenes because no thanks.
I know,
Not
but it's a special kind of props for like
especially kids.
child boy actors in particular. That's
Yeah,
brutal all the way around.
embarrassing for
Oh my
kids.
goodness, super embarrassing for kids. Yeah, no, I thought that scene was fantastic, and I love that there's this like I don't know rivalry back and forth between between the boys and the girls, and they take all the balloons and like attack the girls with jello balloons, and the girls get their clothes and like and yeah, I don't know. It was just
I'm
it's a
pretty
fun
sure
back
I
and
did
forth.
that to Chris and Adam. Stole their clothes while they
Stole
were
their
skinny
clothes.
dipping.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's their own fault. I mean,
Okay, well, I mean, we were definitely like we used to it was always like I mean, we were like thick as thieves, but also, you had to get them.
yeah,
Like you had to razz them, you had to still do, make fun of them.
yeah, yeah,
So
exactly. All right, so tell us what you
so
love so much about Brendan Fraser's character and that whole scene.
so the girls are biking back home and they see this hitchhiker and they're passing him and he's a Vietnam War vet and the war is still going on, we find out in the movie. So
Yeah.
it's like that's the movie takes place during the war in Vietnam
Hmm.
and he has a limp, so the girls are asking him questions like, are
Has
you
he
a
been
soldier? He's
shot?
like,
Yeah.
yes. Have
Hmm.
you been shot? Have you shot anybody? And his responses are like, well, not that I wanted to. It's like, did you kill anybody? He's like, not that I wanted to. And it's just that movie. So that scene, sorry, had he's a war vet, he's hitchhiking, and it shows just such like the how tragic that well all war is, but that war
Yeah.
and how he like obviously has no support as soldiers do. um it was that social commentary on the war in Vietnam and just war in general, how the girls are like, well, what on the news it says that we're
Are we
really
winning? Yeah, they
we're
want to.
gaining ground
Yeah.
where it shows that like we're winning, and he's like, don't believe anything you see on the news. He's like basically he's like the war is pointless, there's no point in this war, which was basically the end result.
Yeah.
um I mean, it's more complex than that, but yes, basically that was the end result. And I love so he stops and sits down on this abandoned, rusted out pickup truck, and the girls stop and sit with him and they offer him like a soda and he offers them cigarettes, and they're all trying to be super mature and they're like, oh yeah, I'll have a cigarette, I'll have a cigarette. And of course Chrissy doesn't. And just certain things like he'll say something and they're pretending, and it's that very teenage thing where you're like you pretend you know what's going on or
And that you're
what's being
cool enough to
discussed.
talk with an adult. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and they just really didn't, and then it kind of dawns on them after. And anyways, I just thought that that was phenomenal. It really shows that coming of age,
Yeah.
those moments for kids really well. And then Samantha says, as they're leaving, she says to him, whatever it is you're looking for, I hope you find it. And it's just, I thought that was brilliant, and because
Well,
it's true for all of them in that scene.
yeah. And he has this like moment with Samantha, who is the narrator of this movie as well. So it's like as an adult Samantha, who is always the writer, the storyteller, the, you know, the, I guess, kind of quasi leader of this group, really, to some levels. She has this like moment where she's really struggling. Her parents are going through this divorce, and she doesn't like know what to do, and like, you know, doesn't really want to admit it. She's embarrassed by it, and she's frustrated, and she misses her dad, who's not at home anymore. And Brendan Fraser says this comment like right after everything we just said, where he says to her like, you can't trust your parents, or don't believe everything your parents say to you. And I feel like it's that moment where it just like really resonates with her, like, oh,
and
like,
it resonates
like,
with all of them.
with
That's
all of them,
they all
yeah.
learn over the course of this summer.
Yeah.
I mean, they basically learn that their parents are just real human beings as well, and they lie and they struggle, and they're just doing the best they can. And it's interesting, like, and at the end we see Samantha say, like, once they got the treehouse, we thought it would bring us together and bring us closer, but what it actually did was gave us our individuality.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really fantastic, you know?
Yeah.
So
I love
that was a great
I love this comment from Hank. Brendan Fraser made smoking a cigarette look cool and telling Chrissy she's a trip. I know. He is just incredible, and it's so nice kind of rewatching him in some of these movies, because he had this like ability to be both like cool and likable and awesome, but also like pure and friendly and honest. Like, he doesn't come across as this.
He's also very tragic in this scene too.
Yeah, and he plays it really, really well.
Leaves it off. There's hope, you know.
Yeah.
It's like the girls have this. It's like he set them up. He prepared them for what's to come throughout the summer, and at the same time, they gave him hope, which is kind of really cool.
Yeah.
I do love when he says that Chrissy's a trip, because of all of the girls, she was the only one that was herself. Like, she actually was just genuinely, authentically herself in that scene. And she's like, smoking stunts your growth. This is stupid. Like, accurate, Chrissy.
She's like wonderfully herself in every single scene. It's so funny that like and it's funny, the screenwriter had a comment in one of the articles I read where she said that basically, you know, there was a little bit of her in every single one of those characters and every single one of those friends, except for Chrissy. And I was trying to think about like which character I am the most of, and I'm probably a mix of Samantha, I guess, and Chrissy. I'm definitely like, I'm at least half Chrissy. I'm like the rule follower, but if I had to pick which character I would want to be, I would 100% want to be Roberta and be Christina Ricci. I always wanted to be like the tomboy, like really cool, can hang with the boys, and I did to some level, but I was definitely much more of the kind of reserved rule follower side of it as well. So how about you, Nat? Which character are you the most like, or what are the?
Well, I think I was kind of a Roberta, just not cool. Like,
I'm like, I mean, I'm not going to agree with the not cool part, but I'll agree with that. Yeah, you're right. You weren't all that cool.
And for Roberta, because like I was definitely a tomboy, and it's like, other than you, like I grew up with like two guy friends, especially in the summer, like Adam and Chris.
Yeah.
And you know, like I was always, even in high school, it was always one of the guys. Like it was never the girl. It was always one of the guys. So but definitely always was like, oh, I wish I was more like Roberta. And I'm like realizing, like, maybe I was like Roberta.
Exactly.
But a little bit Samantha too. Like I'm definitely more like the reader and into the science fiction and the, you know.
Yeah.
It's like if Roberta was a bit nerdier, that's me.
Yeah, there you go. If Roberta was a bit nerdier and also followed the rules, that would be me. So I'm halfway in between all of those. But yeah, I think it's great. Well, I want to talk for a minute about the grandmother, because I think that character is incredible, and I just like same. I've got like, so we see her like really twice, like, or two like epic scenes, I guess, that we should cover. The first time, she's like crazy trying to break into Samantha's house because she like wants to see them and knows that they're home, right? So she's like knocking, and they hide from her. She's concerned about them. She's like a busy
family.
Yeah, she's like a busybody to like the nth degree, right? So she's trying to like break into this house. And then in the second scene, she's like the oldest person that these girls know, and they're trying to get information from way back in the day about this murder and this whole story that they're trying to unravel. And so like she invites them over and lets them all in. And I feel like this is just like so wonderful of this era. And I mean, even the era that we grew up in, where she like invites them all in. She like sort of knows who the friends are, but like knows some of them better than the others. She's like shocked that there are so many of them. She immediately gets them all drinks. They sit down. And then she's like, I've got to go, give me the glasses back and get out. And
she's going to bingo.
She's going to bingo. Yeah.
And I love also she throws on a wig on the way out of the house, and it's a little lopsided, which was fantastic.
Yeah.
So my questions with this scene is, so she gets the girls to sit down, she gives them lemonade. I'm like, was the lemonade spiked?
I know it implies that it is spiked.
And okay, so this is where I think Grandma's a lush, okay?
Yeah.
So she she uncrosses and crosses her legs in the scene, and I never noticed this before, but she flashes her knickers. Okay?
Oh yeah.
You see her pants on screen, and I'm like, couldn't they edit that out? And I'm like, oh no, maybe it's because she's a lush.
Yeah.
I'm like, and it just shows the messiness. And like, did she accidentally put alcohol? Is it spiked lemonade?
I didn't notice that the first time because again, I was who knows how old I was when I originally watched it, but I did definitely. Yeah, I definitely noticed it this time because they take a sip. Yeah. And they're kind of like, they're kind of like it's strong sort of thing, and she just takes it all back anyway and leaves. But I just think Cloris Leachman puts this so well, but like it's just
on the wig crooked, which I loved, and it was like a little bit to make it like a beehive, and it had a little like powder blue bow on it. And it's lopsided. She's running to her friend's convertible. They're like,
peel out of there. Yeah, they're like they just like disappear into the distance.
Drunk grannies on the way to bingo. I'm like, love it.
Goals.
Chaotic.
Chaotic
scene. I loved it. And then so Grandma does leak like, oh, your grandfather, like you're so much like your grandfather. He used to keep everything. He scrapbook all these weird little things, and then she takes off. So the kids break into the house, into this attic, to go through all these old trunks to try and find, and they find finally an article from the paper saying that it was a double homicide, and that's basically
it again, like this is just such a, and maybe it's just for people that grew up in our generation or older than us, but there's something about like an attic as well. Like there's something about like the like I spent a ton of time in my grandparents. I mean, I guess my grandparents didn't have a traditional attic like what shows in this movie. I do now, but they had like rooms where
100 years old.
Yeah, exactly. Houses like mine.
Like that, though. Like attics like yours.
Attics, yeah. But it was like it's so there's something just like really again nostalgic about being in this space where like all of the memories and stories are kind of somewhat hidden, like, and there's something
stuff in it. I'm like, there's so good movie trope. I'm like,
it's such a movie trope. I don't know if it's real, but I looked through a little bit of like my grandparents' stuff every time I went to visit them. They always had like rooms that would have boxes of stuff, or like you would open up old dresses, like teenies trying on like an old like white, almost probably a wedding dress. Like there's just like
a very Edwardian wedding dress. And she has a parasol, and
there's something kind of magical about unlocking stories that way that I really like, and I think it's just really fun to see.
I love in that when they realize it's a murder, and just almost out of nowhere, but not because it builds up through the movie, but Roberta just sort of like explodes, and she's like throwing things. She shatters a mirror. She's like knocking books over, and she's just like, why did they die? Why did they have to die? Why did she have to die? And she's finally admitting that she's struggling with her mom's death. And she finally tells the girls, like, my dad said that there were no problems. Like angels just swooped down.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, her dad, of course, was protecting her because she was a little kid when her mom died, and they found out through the archives that her mom was in a horrible car wreck.
Trapped in the car,
trapped for a long period of time and awake the whole time, and had severe like head trauma. So like she realized like her mom had a horrible death, and that her dad lied about it. Which, I mean, as an adult, I'm like, yeah, I absolutely would lie to my kid about that.
Yeah.
Like, we could talk about it when you're older, but I'm not gonna tell you when you're 5. Like, it was
I
an
don't know.
inferno.
I would probably lie to my teenager about that as well. Like, it's just some stuff that they don't need to know those details. Like, that
Oh,
doesn't
who
solve
does?
anything. Yeah, no one needs to know those details.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
also so Samantha's mom is so there's a scene where she has, like, this absolute crushing secondhand embarrassment when the girls are at the diner and she sees her mom hopping out of the car and walking across the street looking like, Sinatra. Nancy Sinatra? Like,
Hmm.
wow, my sorry,
I was
my
gonna
bar
say smoking hot, but sure, Nancy
Yeah, yeah,
Sinatra
she looks
works too.
well, yeah, she looks smoking hot. They specifically say she looked like Nancy
Yeah, they
Sinatra,
do.
like,
Yeah,
the little mini skirt,
yeah.
the boots
Her
that are
her
made for
her
walking, the
skirt or shorts were like super short, but her boots were super tall, and I was like, yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah, and, and so and then we find out later that, like, shortly thereafter that the dad leaves, and then
yeah,
she has a date, and she has a first date with Hank Azaria, dinner at home with her 2 kids, which I was like, "That's a first date?" But one thing that I think really pushed Samantha into how we see her as an adult was like the dad left and there was no explanation and he just didn't even talk to the kids and the mom just didn't even talk about it and just
yeah.
immediately starts dating other people and moves on. But Hank Azaria says this one thing and I was like, I swear to God, like if somebody ever said that to me, I would punch him in a
You'd be
place that
gone.
hurts so bad.
Yeah,
Where he's like, "Oh, you're such a looker, just like your mom." Excuse me? You can't say that to a kid. She's supposed to be 12, by the way, in the movie. What? Why, adult middle-aged men, are you telling a child
yeah.
that she's extremely attractive? Ugh. It sent me. I was like, I hope that relationship didn't work out.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an awful scene because like you said, it's just
Yeah.
so like I get that
Traumatic on different levels
it's
for
traumatic on a
Samantha.
variety of levels. Yeah, because it's like they've now been through like all of these different things. No one is talking to them about any of it. It's like a hugely taboo like thing anyway, generally in society. And like so
Yeah,
yeah, there's like such levels of embarrassment and they're trying to like get through that and then that mixed with all of the like just growing up she's doing that summer is just brutal. Like you feel just horrible for
yeah.
them.
And she does say as her adult Demi Moore self later in the movie that she's always had these problems with relationships because it's like
Hmm.
once she gets to a more intimate level of dating, she ends the relationship right away. And she says,
Yeah.
well, if you don't fall in love, you don't get hurt.
Yeah.
And and then Chrissy's like, we need to make another pact at the end of the movie, which I loved, where she's like, we need to see each other more often.
Yeah.
But really cute. So now what all the girlies want to talk about is that scene with Devon Sawa
Mm-hmm.
and Christina Ricci.
Mm-hmm.
Super adorable.
Mm-hmm.
So comes across, she's playing basketball, it's nighttime, and he gives her like a pointer, like, oh, you're not following through on your shot. And she's like, who asked you?
She's like, go away. Yeah.
And then she like tosses the ball at him like way too hard. And he shows her, and she's like, begrudgingly is like without saying it but gives like that nod where okay fine show me how to do it because obviously and then they play like little one-on-one basketball and he's like hey you're really good and then he says like the magic words for Roberta, not just for a girl but you're actually really good. And I was like because that's exactly like her thing is like she hates being compared
Yep.
to boys. She hates being, oh, well, you're good for a girl. Because
Yeah.
it's not a thing. You're either
Yeah.
good or you're not. Like, and then she offers him a soda and they go sit on the porch swing. And it's just so cute and so awkward. And it's so that first kiss, that first moment. And I found they did it so well. He kind of awkwardly puts his arm out around her, but not really. And then he very awkwardly like stammers out more than once, like, can I kiss you? And she's like, okay. And he leans in super excited. And she's like, now? Which is so cute.
It's
And
so
then they do
adorable.
kiss. And
Yeah.
I mean, it's like you're a little kid, like, first kiss kind of
Yeah,
thing,
there's an
like,
awkwardness to it.
she
There's a purity to it. Yeah, it's just
yeah,
very like it's
it was
adorable.
so
It's an
well done.
adorable scene. And then she
Yeah.
doesn't like what's great kind of about this movie that makes it again just like so believable and brings out kind of all the nostalgia in women of our age, but is that like they like you said they each are having these like they're having this very shared summer experience and
Yeah.
but they're also having these like very specific individual experiences that they're not telling each other about. Like,
Yeah.
she doesn't tell any of the other friends that she's had this like kiss with him. She like mentions later in the movie that like he's not as bad as they make him out to be,
I love
and
that
which
too.
is great, right? And then like you have, Samantha and everything that she goes through. She only tells Teeny about it because she just needs to get away, and so she knows that Teeny's going to be like free because her parents are never, around and available for her. So like they're kind of having these moments by themselves but in a larger group as well, and I don't know, I feel like it's just a really honest portrayal of all of that. I love. Okay,
It's
so
that age.
this moment gave me Home Alone vibes. so there's this older man who like we see throughout the movie, and he's kind of like the creepy old man, and they're sort of like somewhat nice to him, but also he's kind of creepy and they like don't really want to talk to him. And one of the mothers at some point is just like, oh, leave him alone. Like he's like this old man, right? So he's kind of like the old man that lives next door.
Harmless, creepy Pete.
Harmless, creepy Pete, right? Like leave him alone. And so it's this very kind of similar to Home Alone, where in Home Alone, Macaulay Culkin's family and character live next door to this old man who ends up like, not being as bad and creepy and awful as everyone thinks he is, and ends up saving his character in that movie. And in the same manner in this movie, the girls are. So Samantha and Teeny have had this moment where Samantha has admitted that her parents are getting divorced, which was like hard for her, and and Teeny is like totally there for her, and they
Also, Teeny admits that she doesn't know anything about her parents. Samantha's like, well,
yeah
do you like your parents? Because right now I kind of hate mine.
yeah
And she's like,
she's
to
like,
be
I don't
honest, I
even
don't
know
know
them.
them at all.
Yeah, she doesn't
Which
know anything.
is horrific
Yeah,
too. Like that's
somewhat
a whole
worse.
other.
Yeah.
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 Anyway, so continue.
Yeah, so they have this like really beautiful moment together, and they share a friendship bracelet, which is like so iconic, like girls growing up, which thankfully those have not gone away, so we're good. They share a friendship bracelet, and then it starts to pour rain, and so they're testing out their treehouse, and then they're on their bikes, and they're trying to get back home because the weather is turning, it's really bad. And Samantha loses her bracelet, and of course in typical 12-year-old fashion, they like stop to try to find this bracelet even though it's like a really bad storm. She ends up getting down into like a storm like sewer, which is the worst like still terrifies me even though I know it works out. Like I'm just like no, don't do that.
Pennywise vibes.
Yeah.
Like who don't come on.
Don't do
Like,
that.
that
Don't
is
do that.
wildly
Yeah.
insane.
So she gets
Even as a kid, I've never. Maybe I am a bit Chrissy. I'm like I would have never gone into
Chrissy
the
never
sewer
would have
as a
gone into
child.
exactly.
Are you kidding me? Have a
Never
little
would
more
have gone.
imagination. That can go really badly.
Yeah, never would have got into the sewer. But they have this like really like scary moment where like it becomes really apparent that Samantha is like going to drown, and there's literally nothing that Teeny can do about it. She can't get out of the sewer. The water is like rushing in. It's a really bad storm, and Petey, who they've been making fun of and slightly horrified by this entire movie, comes by and like shows up somewhat out of nowhere and saves her, right? So she recovers her bracelet, and she has this whole moment kind of with him. They both have this moment with him, and he disappears. And it turns out later in this movie, once they've kind of uncovered the story of these, of Dear Johnny and his mother who were murdered, it turns out that they are the family of this man who they've been, kind of spending this summer with, who's just been kind of in the periphery and in the background of everything, ends up being this main character. But none of the girls really figure it out except for Samantha, and she doesn't uncover it to the rest of them until they are adults, later in the movie as they're together as adults. And I think again, it's just like this moment where particularly Samantha, although, some of them had those moments as well, it's this nice parallel between what you said was this really important moment with Brendan Fraser, and then at the end where she has this really important moment with another adult where the perception is not the reality, right? Like, so here are all these adults where it's not perfect and things are like really awful and they're just surviving and doing the best that they can to get through it, and they don't know what to do and they aren't making the right decisions, and she's just, you know, kind of becomes more and more aware of that throughout the movie. And it's kind of these nice bookends of, you know, she figures all that out from Brendan Fraser, and then as she's having that final conversation with this man who's lost everything, he's lost his entire family, you know, and is carrying the weight of that, blames himself
for the murder of his family, because
yeah,
he was at the bar drinking, so he's ostracized himself from society. He tells her this, so they have a seance to sort of close off, like, to see if they can
send back
murdered
yeah
your Johnny, and also to send his spirit back, because they think they brought his spirit forward because the tombstone cracks during a storm. So they think. And it's actually this really funny moment where they see a new tombstone just sort of floating in this orb of light.
Towards them.
And it's actually just like a cemetery worker. He's like, and he's kind of laughing at them. He's like, you thought you brought his spirit back? He's like, no, I cracked it with my tractor the other day. He's like, I'm replacing it.
Yeah.
But Samantha notices Pete in the cemetery, and she picks some like little flowers and goes to put them on the grave, and she basically expresses her condolences. And he, again, like you said, he says, like, there's no sense in giving up on life before. He's like, there's things that happen that you can't control.
Yeah.
And you can't just stop living life because of it. And I like how at the end of the movie, as an adult, it finally clicks.
Yeah.
Just like, oh.
Yeah. It's I mean, again, this entire movie is really, it's a coming of age story. It's about growing up. It's about like letting go of the magic by realizing the reality of the situation, but also like the importance of friendship and of like relationships. And it's really, really well done. Like, not only that it like holds up, and part of that is because it's set in like a really particular era, so it's not like, you know, there's not an expectation, it doesn't feel dated because it was dated when it came out, but it's a enduring story, I think, regardless of, you know, changings in technology and how, you know, people hang out and spend time together. There's always going to be, you know, groups of friends. There's always going to be like this, you know, this point where you're not really a kid anymore, but you're not quite an adult, and you think you know everything, but you don't really. And there's all of these, you know, situations that come up. So it was really nice to rewatch it, and I look forward to like watching my kids go through this kind of period of life. I think it'll be really interesting to see like what I hope that they have those kind of crazy magical moments that we both got to have, and it was super fun getting to rewatch.
You know, the one thing we didn't have, and I remember we're biking along Guayne Boulevard by the river, and I'm like, we don't have a transistor radio.
We don't. I have one now that I have it in my porch.
Now that you're an adult.
Yeah, now that I'm an
adult money to spend on childish dreams. But
exactly.
So we're biking, and it's like we were singing like all the songs from this movie, and we're like, but we're like, oh man, I wish we had a radio. And it's like we had Walkman, but it's like it's not the same because you couldn't play that out loud. It's just like there was a gap in technology, and like, which of course we looked for a transistor radio, asked all our parents, and they're like, no, we don't have one anymore. Like, why would we? It was.
We were in the era of boom boxes, which you couldn't easily tie to the front of your bike.
No.
So yeah, it was.
And also, you needed all those batteries. It would have, less efficient.
Oh my gosh. Well, we're almost at the end, but I want to go through a few fun facts, because I don't think we actually covered a lot of these, but we'll go quickly through some of these. So we did say that the screenwriter for this movie was apparently only 10 years old when she wrote this, which I'm doubtful, but hey, well, we'll give that one to her, I suppose. One of the other ones, which I think is absolutely fantastic, is that Thora Birch didn't know how to ride a bike. And this movie, as we've said, is like literally the entire movie is them riding their bikes everywhere. So props to you, because the fact that this woman like was able to just master that and be on a bike, that would have been so humiliating as someone who like was a pretty like good child actor at that point. To just have that falling is kind of fantastic. I think we mentioned that Devon Sawa, who everyone was in love with throughout this movie, got the role because he was in Casper, which is another incredible, albeit real depressing movie.
Real depressing.
That was a really great one.
Yeah. Christina Ricci actually recommended him for the movie. So it's like the girls were already cast, and I think she was cast first from what I remember. And she recommended him. She's like, I worked with him on Casper, though briefly, because they only had like one actual in-person scene together.
Yeah.
And she recommended him, so he's like, I put a tape together immediately. Yeah.
Okay, cute. So this one is specifically for our live studio audience member, Val. So you will appreciate this, Val. So I'm very excited to share this one with you. Hopefully you don't know this, but there's a famous bike ride-along song in this film, Knock 3 Times, which I like cannot get out of my head since watching it. But apparently the original film was scripted to include a Diana Ross song, but no one could sing it because it was too hard. So shout out to Val, who sings Diana Ross songs all the time and probably would have absolutely nailed that. But could you have done it on a bike while dancing? Because that was part of the scene at 12 years old. Now I kind of want to know which Diana Ross song it was, but Knock 3 Times was a really an incredible replacement. But yeah, I thought that was pretty fantastic and totally made me think of Val. So I'm glad you're here listening live, Val, so I could share it with you. I think that's most of the ones. Oh, the last one I wanted to cover before we wrap, and maybe Nat has one that I didn't think of, but is that Samantha's little sister in the movie was actually played by Rumer Willis, Demi Moore's daughter. So I thought that was great. I didn't read that until afterwards, so I had to go back and be like, oh yeah. Wait a second.
Demi Moore was a producer on the movie. Actually, one thing they all wanted Rosie O'Donnell to be adult Christina Ricci.
Yeah.
And the writer and Demi Moore, I can't remember the writer's name. Was it Valerie Todd? Something like that. And Demi Moore had to basically woo her, and they like basically stalked her. She was performing in Greece on Broadway at the time, and they went to go see the show to support her, and then basically were super pushy backstage and were like, please let us take you out and convince you to do this movie.
So, I'm sure she probably loved it.
I'm so happy they did.
Yeah, she was fantastic in this. Absolutely. Val can sing anywhere, anytime, anything, anywhere, says Paul, but Val admits dancing on a bike, no, not so much. I think I would have fallen off that bike, but we definitely as kids did a lot of the like bike dancing and singing while pretending that we were in Now and Then.
I think we sang Sugar by Honey Bunch a lot.
Yeah,
terribly off key. Neither of us are songbirds by any means.
Neither of us are songbirds. Well, we're about to get to the point of the show where we give our potato rating. So our live studio audience can drop in how many potatoes or stars. If you're going to be boring about it, you can put in your stars for how many stars you think this movie is. Yeah, Dean's watching. Drop your stars in. But it looks like from everyone that was watching, so Hank is a closet chick flick fan. Me too.
Love that.
My dad like swears by that even now to this day. Like every time that I suggested a movie, he was always like, well, we should let Katie pick, because really he just loved a chick flick. So so I grew up in that era. So yeah, you're welcome here. But yeah. And so I guess before we jump over, because I want to give people time to put their ratings in, we should say that we are off next week. I'm out of town, so we're taking a hiatus next week. That's the first week of August if you're joining us and kind of listening as these are rolling out. But we are going to be back the following week, so you'll have to let us know what are we watching next, Nat? What's on the list of? We got to get back into summer blockbusters. We're still in summer mode.
I don't know.
Wanted to do Robin of Locksley, which is not a summer blockbuster, but we absolutely can.
The other week I had mentioned on the podcast that there was this terrible Devon Sawa movie. Like, it was so bad. And I was like, maybe we should cover it. So in some research, I found out that it was a made-for-TV produced by Hallmark Canadian movie. So nobody's going to know this movie. It's called Robin of Locksley.
I know
But
it.
I remember Katie and I, oh, well, yeah, we watched it together. Your dad rented it. He's like, oh, I got this movie for us, movie night. And I don't know how young, we were young and like preteen. And Devon Sawa is in it, Sarah Chalk, Tyler Labine, and Joshua Jackson. Fantastic Canadian cast, but also like fantastic actors. He French kisses Sarah Chalk in it. It was the first time Katie and I are like, oh,
Jealous.
oh my God. He used his tongue. We were so scandalized, but yeah, that.
That might have to happen.
And I remember your dad paused the movie after that because I think he was just like, inappropriate.
My poor dad had to pause a lot of
because
movies.
There's no way you can find this movie. Like, you can't even buy it.
Oh, all right, I'm in for watching. All right, we're gonna go all the way there. Well, we have some of the ratings that are in, so if you haven't dropped it in, drop it in the comments. If you're watching on replay or you're listening to the podcast on your favorite podcast player, definitely leave us a comment, leave us a review, send us an email to the VHS Club pod@gmail.com. Let us know what you thought of this one. Hank says 5 stars all day. Paul gives it 5 boobs. Yeah. He means potatoes. Val thinks we should sing the title songs for our outros. I don't want to get in any trouble with any license. I'm like worried about what YouTube might do if we play. I want to play movie trailers and I'd love to be able to sing, but I don't know if I would get in trouble. Maybe we're bad enough singers. It wouldn't matter.
Also, fun fact, the title song Now and Then for this movie was sung by one of the singers from the Bangles. Her name escapes me at the moment, but the Bangles did the not the band, but one of them.
Yeah. One bangle, an individual bangle.
A bangle.
A bangle. All right. Well, without further ado, it should come as no surprise that, like everything else, this one gets 5 potatoes. Oh my gosh. Yeah. We need at least one movie that we really hate that we watch so that it just really rounds it out. It's getting biased at this point that every movie is like 4 or 5 potatoes.
I'm telling you, the Robin of Locksley movie is it's terrible.
My only memory of that movie is that I remember he had this like really, it's funny, I didn't even remember the French kiss until you told me about it. The only thing I remembered is that Devon Sawa was in it. I remember the like movie box, and I remember that he had this incredible mural on his wall, and I was like, how come I don't have a mural on my wall? My mom is like a really good artist. There's no reason for this. Like, why do I not have this on my wall? But yeah, those are the only things I remember.
And he had, what are those beds? Like it was like the higher bed, but not a bunk bed, so you could put your desk underneath.
Oh yeah.
And I remember like after the movie, you legit like made a business plan for your dad to convince him to get you that bed for your room.
Yeah, if you have kids, I will say that one of the best things my dad ever did, it's like the most obnoxious dad move that you could possibly do, but he made me write business proposals for literally everything that I wanted. It was like, well, you want that? You should write a business proposal for it. And I don't mean like a kind of business proposal. I mean like a full-fledged PowerPoint presentation business proposal. And he kept, I think, most of them. Yeah.
And I'm talking about like before Microsoft Office, like Lotus Suites presentation for anybody who remembers what that is.
So I can rock a proposal, let me tell you. I'm really, really good. Val is newer, so she does not know the history of potatoes. So before we go, we need to talk about the history of potatoes. So Val, Nat is a diehard Christian Slater fan. I am like a fan of Christian Slater, but not to the same level as Nat is. And Nat and I have this game we like to play at birthday time and Christmas, but mostly birthdays, where we try to one-up each other on fantastic gift ideas. I don't know when this started, recently, in like the last year or two. So I got this really fantastic idea and found out that you could actually ship an actual potato, like a real life, a real
like
potato. You can eat it potato. If you look this up, the company that I chose, because Nat's in Canada, was called potatoparcel.ca. Not even joking with you. Look this up. It's a real place.
I think
they have them in the States.
Potatoparcel.com.
Yeah.
And I think they have in I think they expanded to Europe. Anyways, I know too much about potato parcel.
Yeah,
Shout out.
potatoparcel.ca. And you can put whatever you want on this potato, like literally any kind of picture. And they don't seem to have any kind of like issue with putting copyrighted anything. So I just found this like picture, as you can see above us if you're watching the video. There's this picture of Christian Slater looking all hot back in the 80s. So I put it on the potato and I just sent it to Nat. And you can like put like extra things in the box. I think like when you open it, there was like candy in it and like a note.
Yeah.
Like it was ridiculous. And so I thought it would be really fun to call it Spud Slater, but Nat thought it was better to call him Christian Tater. So now it's Christian Tater. Yeah. So then when we were thinking of the idea of doing this podcast, we were like, well, we need a rating system. We could do stars, but it's way more fun to do it as Christian Tater potatoes. So now all of our rating systems are done with potatoes.
Taters.
Yeah, are in taters. So you should join us in always reviewing all of your movies with the amount of Christian taters. And as Hank said, we need to do like a whole series of as many Christian Slater movies as possible. So
Yes.
Broken Arrow is definitely on the list. That's a great one. But there's a bunch of them. But there you go. For Val and for anyone who is just joining the podcast, welcome. Grab your potatoes, ship them to each other if you want. It's super fun. Maybe we could be Spud Heads. We need like a fun name for the VHS Club fans, all 5 of you. We could have a really fun name because it's more fun to be in a group if there's
Tater
a fun
tots.
name. Tater Tots. All right, the tots. Okay, fantastic. It's really important to name your fans without asking for their permission at all or letting them choose. So Tater Tots. Val's gonna rate the next one. And if you're still listening, you've made it to the very end of this episode. You can always join us. We are live. We record live in front of what we love to call our YouTube Tater Tot audience. You can join us on Thursday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern. And if you are more of a catch it when you get around to it person, you can always find the replays and short fun video clips on our YouTube channel. You can listen wherever you get your podcasts. We are there in audio version, and those episodes usually drop the following morning, so Friday mornings. But there's lots of fun back episodes to catch up on. And we have a shiny new, absolutely fantastic movie list. So we have that link is in the description for all of our videos and in the show notes for all of our podcast episodes. So you can add your own ideas and movie recommendations to our list. We'll ignore them and then choose what movies we want to do. So that's how this whole process works.
No, not always.
And I'm laughing because Hank is calling it Darth Tater, which is like totally. Hank is our people. It's because Hank and I have birthdays really close together. We're both really weird Virgos. So we're actually only a day apart. He's September 1st and I'm August 31st. Hank gets me, you know. Hank gets my dark humor. I love it. Well, Nat, thanks for hanging out and allowing me to rewatch Now and Then and break our summer blockbuster mini series. And I'm excited in 2 weeks to catch you again for Robin of Locksley. Robin of Locksley, right? That's the name of it? I'll have to find it.
Yeah.
YouTube.
And I don't know if you'll be able to find it. It was on YouTube. It's extremely poor quality.
Yeah,
if we run into problems finding it, you literally can't even buy it. So anyways, if we run into
follow
issues,
that one up with hackers because we'll be in that phase. That'll be good.
Oh yes,
that'll be good.
Yeah, the movie was wild, guys.
Oh my gosh. All right, well, join us in 2 weeks for a Canadian classic, everyone. We'll see you in a couple weeks. Thank you so much to our live studio audience for letting us laugh our way through this episode and giving us all of your fun feedback. We will see you in 2 weeks, 9 p.m. Eastern on Thursday evenings. Thanks for hanging out, Nat. Bye, everyone.